Hello everyone, welcome to another Hatton's live stream, and today we are doing a Loco profile, showing you some of the most famous locomotives to operate in the UK and beyond, and the models that they have inspired, past and present, in all the different scales. Today, as you may have guessed already, we're looking at the British Rail Class 52 Western Hydraulic Diesel. Now, these are a firm fan favourite right from the 1960s, up to the current day as well, with some of them still being around. But let's look further into the story. Now, these particular engines were built for the western region of British Railways, with steam remaining king throughout the period into the 1950s and onwards. Dieselisation did continue, but the GWR, the western region, shall we say, really looked into going its own way. While a lot of the other regions, such as the Eastern region and the London Midland region, should I say there, were looking more into diesel electric traction, the Great Western region stuck with the diesel hydraulic theme, mainly used in Germany and in continental Europe. There wasn't many diesel hydraulic locos used in the UK, but the Western region had its real policy to stick with the Western hydraulic types. In the late 1950s, they trialled different locomotives, such as the D600 and the D800 warships, as well as the D7000 high-mech mixed traffic engines. But later on, these locomotives were found to be a little bit underpowered compared to the Great Western Kings, Castles, and other 460 steam locomotives that had gone before. So a more powerful design was needed. And this was that design, the Western Diesel Hydraulic. Designed in 1960 and the first locomotive delivered in late 1961, they had 2,700 horsepower. That's 700 more horsepower than the warship diesels that had gone before them. They had two huge Maybach power units in there, a pair of MD655s, and with them being diesel hydraulic, they did have the hydraulic transmission as well, which really helped the acceleration there and kept them sure-footed on services in the region. And the Westerns did have a challenge in front of them as well, because not only were they expected to run fast on expresses on the flat routes between London and Birmingham and heading towards Bristol as well, and Cardiff, but also heading down into the southwest of England, they were expected to handle just as well on the tight grades and steep curves of the banks as well, going down towards Exeter and into Cornwall too. So they had to be a hill climber, but also capable of fast speeds. So the locomotives were introduced and immediate success. They really did copy from the initial design. They were designed, I believe, by the physical design anyway, designed by a chap called Sir Misha Black as well. So you've got the distinctive double front windows there with the streamlined style as well. And some people think that they are some of the most attractive diesels to have ran on the British railway system. This is one of the initial liveries. It's number D10000, the first of the class, seen in the desert sand livery that was trialled on the Loco. So a couple of you are probably already asking, hang on a minute, diesels were green in this period, weren't they? We hadn't quite got to blue yet, but what are all these Maroon engines doing here? And again, the Western region wanted to do its own thing. They steered away from the green, although a couple of locos did get that livery, as you see here, and they really went to town on providing locomotives in the Maroon livery. These were the only diesels on British Rail to have carried this, alongside the D800 warships as well, and it gave them a really distinctive look compared to a lot of other locomotives and different regions on British Rail as well. So we're coming up to the mid-1960s now. The locomotives really are making the mark on the Western region alongside the warships and the high-mechs as well. But even for an immediately successful design as this, it wasn't to last. They were pretty quickly defined as non-standard. BR gained a lot more control of its regions and did want to stick with the diesel-electric locomotives, such as the forthcoming Class 47, the Class 50 and the Class 37 as well. On a standardised UK rail network where the diesels are the same all across the country, these Western hydraulics really didn't have a place. Although a lot of work still was carried out to them, they did fit them with air brakes towards the end of the 1960s so they could haul different types of traffic. And even though they were built mainly as express locomotives, you could see them on freight duties too. You could see them on clay trains and milk trains in the southwest of England. So not always the big express duties, you can see these with short formations as well. But as we mentioned, time was running out for the Westerns. Even with their characteristic style, they had some great fans, especially from the locomotive crews in the Western region as well, for which these had replaced the steam engines that went before. A lot more cleaner, a lot more easier to work, didn't have to spend many hours beforehand starting them up as well. But still, time was running out. Locomotives such as the Class 47 and Class 50 were being imported from other regions to replace the Western hydraulics. And as you can see here, in the 1970s, they really did start to lose their finesse. The condition went very, very poor indeed as well. But they still did put in some absolutely fantastic performances, showing the quality of the repairs that could be carried out by the depots such as Swindon and Plymouth Lara as well. In fact, a lot of locomotives did go back to Swindon for repairs. Most of the class were originally built there in the 1960s, with other members of the class built at Crewe Works in the northwest of England. But they did go back there for major repairs, and unfortunately, a lot of them went there to be scrapped as well. But during this time, this was really the birth of diesel enthusiasts. With the end of British Rail steam, a lot of enthusiasts had swapped over into being fans of these locomotives, and the Westerns really were the cream of the crop for the enthusiasts. With the iconic look, the slightly different liveries, the interesting services that they ran, including the Cornish Riviera Express, and also the fascinating names as well, all of which start with Western, but you've got some really powerful names in there too. Western Lord, Western Lady, Western Prince, Western Buccaneers in there too, Western Musketeer, Western Ranger. You really could get to like these locomotives if you were a 1970s enthusiast. But the last nail in the coffin came for the Westerns in the middle of the 1970s. Even with the 47s and the 50s that had really started the withdrawals, BR decided that no more major repairs were going to take place for the class. So the story almost came to an end in 1976 and 1977. It was some of the first purely diesel rail tours that happened on the UK's railways as well, with enthusiast trips, as we see here, with D1023 sat next to one of its replacements, the high-speed train, which is just celebrating 40 years in service itself. That particular photo is under the famous Brunel train shed at Paddington as well. So you can see the various enthusiasts giving their last pilgrimage on one of these Western locomotives. And the final ones were withdrawn in 1977. However, some were preserved as well. There is a range of locomotives still surviving, and these have been saved by the very same enthusiasts, some of which who travelled on those trips and became fans of the locos in the 1970s. Onno Mulderdoe with a great question. He's asked how many are preserved. There are 7 preserved of these locomotives, dotted at various different places across the country. And I'll show you a picture now of D1010 in preservation. This is at the West Somerset Railway, so a really appropriate place for this locomotive to operate in its 1960s maroon livery with matching Mark I coaches in chocolate and cream there as well. So a number of the locomotives are preserved, working on preserved railways across the UK, apart from one. And that's with extensive overhaul and many, many pounds of work. One of the locomotives has returned to mainline use as well, so it can go pretty much anywhere it wants in the UK. And this is D1015, Western Champion. And the great story about this as well is it returned to the main line in 2002, did operate some fully authentic services around the south and west of England that the Westerns called home. However, as you can see in this photo here, it really has spread its wings too to take the Westerns to places they've never gone before, This is coming past Buxton in the north of Derbyshire, in the centre of England. This particular locomotive has even been up to the top of Scotland as well, right above Inverness to the Kyle of Lochalsh. And that is hundreds and hundreds of miles away from where these locomotives would have ran in service. So as you can see, the Westerns still have a fantastic following from enthusiasts out there, with 7 of them still available to see, but the history is really, really covering there as well. So let's look at the models. And as you can imagine, with a locomotive that's this stylish and has won awards for its bodywork in the style that it provides, models have been available from when the locomotives were originally in operation right through to fully super detailed 21st century models also. We start with the Trix model, which was actually in HO scale and quite a bit shorter than it should be, but it was an initial model and let a lot of enthusiasts have a Western on their layout. This was followed by a model from Lima and then Hornby as well, introduced in the 1980s. This model was retired in the mid-2000s, but you can see there some of the hallmarks of its age. It's got the larger coupling and the ring-field motor too, but it's still got quite a lot of detail and some great livery application also. Heading into the 21st century, Helgem made a fully new tooled Western. It was one of their first 00 scale high detailed diesel locomotives that they provided for the UK market early in the 2000s. This was available in many liveries at the time, and SLD51 has asked her whether we've got any of these in stock at the moment. We have a couple of these on our pre-owned section. They've not been made new for a few years now, but do take a look on there, as you can get some different liveries and some great running numbers on there also. Dapol then provided an N-gauge model, one of the first N-gauge models, following on from the Graham Farish Loco in the 1990s. Again, this is a fully super detailed model, and this particular one is still available today in a number of different liveries. Heading through to the next 00 scale model, we have Dapol's model, which came out in the late 2000s now. There are still quite a few liveries here available too, but this incorporated a heck of a lot more detail and really did bring a super detailed model through for you. I'll just show you on the camera there. You can see some of the really fine detail provided by the Dapol Western. This is available right now. If you click that link in the description, they're available in a number of different liveries that we've covered through the stream so far, including the Maroon that you see here, the BR Blue, BR Green, which I've got on the desk in front of me, and I'll show you that in a second, but also some of the more heritage liveries as well, including the Desert Sand that we took a look at towards the start of the stream. Anyway, last but not least, we've got the big one. We've got an O-gauge Western as well. This again is provided by Helgem, and this was one of the first locomotives brought out in O-gauge about 10 years ago or so now, but they recently have done a rerun in various different liveries, including the BR Blue that you see here, and also the Maroon as well. So if you are interested in any of these models, past and present, do click that link in the description for more information. We do have pre-owned models available of some of the previous models of the Westerns, which are great opportunities to pick up models at a bargain price. Or if you really want to go to town in the detail and the scale, you can pick up one of the brand new locomotives, such as the O-gauge Helgem model, Dapol 00 gauge, or Dapol's N-gauge Model 2. And I'll just give you a little bit of a closer look again at the 00 gauge model there. One of the great advantages of the Westerns, especially on the models as well, is that, as you can see here, they don't come pre-fitted with name or number plates. If we go back to a quick photo of one of the locos, you will see that they are fitted with cast number plates and name plates. So really harking back to that Great Western style there as well. So where the Great Western locomotives would have their own cast number plates, this was followed on the Westerns. This gives you a really good opportunity to rename or renumber to any of the 74 locomotives that were built. There are some minor detail differences which are catered for in a number of the models available as well across the different toolings there. So if you are modelling a specific locomotive, do check to make sure you get the details right, but you can buy a lot of them without the names as well, so you can pick your particular favourite. But that's about it from me today. We've covered some of the models that are available of this really iconic class. I'll just show you some more of the images that we had prepared there to show you the full history of the Western locomotives from the 1960s in Old Oak Common Depot there. The decline in the 1970s, but not going out without a fight, as you can see here. And then the return to active service in preservation and the triumphant return to the main line of the 1015 Western Champion in recent years. If you'd like to know a little bit more about the Westerns, do check out that link in the description. We've got information on the real life locomotives and the models that you've seen here today as well. You can buy brand new models of the Westerns in all three major scales that you see here: N gauge, double O gauge and O gauge. But keep an eye out for some of the classics as well that have been around since the 1970s onwards, and you may pick up a bargain if you want one of these less detailed but still perfectly fine models too. I'm a big fan of the Westerns. They have that character, they really ooze quality to me. And with such variation in the liveries, especially where you have a lot of BR green diesels in the 1960s, just to have something that was so different with its hydraulic transmission, the maroon colour scheme, the cast number plates, they really did stand out on a diesel railway that was newly being formed in the UK. So if I've inspired you to take a closer look, have a look at that link in the description to find out a little more. Otherwise, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page for more streams like this. And all it remains me to say is thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care.